Well, Russ, you see, when you sculpt a statue, and did you do the H.H. Cherry statue in 1936? Art inspires. A 5-year-old from Logan County sees a statue and says, "Daddy, what's that? I want to go there." That's the value of art and the value of education. Great blending of honorees this morning. I want to mention one other thing that's not in the script here because I'm proud of it. Margaret, you were the first, and today, Western Kentucky University has more African American students than any other university in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, including Kentucky State. And that's largely the reason why we have this rich and diverse cultural environment that inspires everyone. But you have to work at it, and our students do, and they graduate. Thanks for being a role model. Our third inductee, Brigadier General Victor H. Strahm. Victor Herbert Strahm, a 1915 graduate of the then Western Kentucky State Normal School. General Strahm was an American hero whose leadership and innovation still influence our military's combat and operations today. In the nominations submitted to the committee, I was struck by this commentary from Ray Buckberry. Please consider not only what he did, but when he did it. General Strahm is noted for his fierce courage and was described as a fearless leader with unmatched skill. A combat pilot in World War I, earning the designation of Ace. In the earliest days of aerial combat, he became one of the most decorated fighter pilots of his time. Retired Air Force General Dan Cherry described General Strahm's skill in the air as unmatched and credits him for development of many flight tactics and combat maneuvers that are still in use by today's highly skilled combat pilots. General Strahm was the leader of the 9th Air Force, which conducted some of the most dangerous bomber operations of World War II, including technical air support for the Normandy landings on D-Day. Following World War II, he was a key figure in organizing the U.S. Strategic Air Command. Some threads are woven here with General Russ Daugherty, who was inducted into this hall a few years ago. General Strahm passed away in May 1957 at the age of 59. Please redirect attention to the video screens to learn more about a true American hero and a distinguished WKU alumnus, General Victor Herbert Strahm.
A supreme pilot, courageous, organized, and skilled, Brigadier General Victor Strahm left his mark on 2 world wars and contributed to the development of the modern Air Force. Strahm graduated from Western Kentucky State Normal School in 1915, where his father, Franz, a German national, was director of music. Fates changed with the outbreak of World War I.
Well, Professor Strong had publicly supported Germany, but he was at chapel on April 7, one day after war was declared against Germany, and he asked for time at the podium and with tears streaming supported his adopted country and that he would go fight for his country, his new country, but that he was too old. But in what he still had as fractured English, he said, "I have a boy, he go," and Victor did.
The airplanes that he was flying back in that day, again, very primitive by our standards. Again, it's evident that Victor Strahm was able to get through any fear that might have been generated because of the lack of reliability of his machine. And then he had this natural ability of hand-eye coordination, I think, along with the courage. He had the ability to fly that primitive airplane in such a way, and keep in mind that back in that day, he didn't have the luxury that I did in my career of being able to learn from the Victor Strahms and the Johnny Magdas of earlier wars. They were the first, they were the pioneers, so all the techniques and aerial maneuvers that you perform in combat that we still use today, I might say.
He was not a fighter pilot, he was a reconnaissance man. And his job in many instances was to go low and slow and get the information they needed. And to wind up with 5 aerial victories from that assignment is, to me, that is courage, and that is a conviction for the job, I think.
Brigadier General Strahm's distinguished career earned him the designation of Ace, with 5 confirmed aerial victories during World War I. In peacetime, Strahm was loaned by the Army to fly stunt for several movies in Hollywood and traveled the country barnstorming.
It was 1924 that he flew in his first national air race, and it was called the National Southern Air Race, and it was flown in Bel Air, Florida, of which Victor Strahm won. And that was the first of 4 entries that he made in the national air races. In another air race, he finished, and I think that was the 1929 air race, he finished 4th. But he also appeared in several other air races as a dignitary, not flying for glory. But he was, and then he moved in the 1930s. He joined Wilbur Wright Field, or he was assigned to Wilbur Wright Field as chief test pilot. And he tested a number and a variety of aircraft, and one of which was the B-10 bomber, which was the pre-runner of the Boeing B-17 bomber.
After World War II, Strahm helped organize the Strategic Air Command and served as commander of the 33rd Air Division at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City and as base commander at Barksdale Air Base in Louisiana. He died in 1957. Strahm's honors include the British Distinguished Flying Cross, the Italian Gold Medal for Valor, and the U.S. Distinguished Service Cross with Oak Leaf Cluster.
His international reach was, of course, based in the military, and it was so extensive in so many different facets. As I say, his planning expertise must have been outstanding because he was placed in the right spots for the most difficult tasks, and I think that says a lot about his ability.
2012 WKU Hall of Distinguished Alumni inductee, Brigadier General Victor Strahm.
Good afternoon. Dr. Ransdell, thank you so very much for allowing me to speak about one of Kentucky's greatest heroes. I do not have the expression of thought or the eloquence of speech to adequately describe this unique individual, General Victor Herbert Strahm. It's a pleasure and an honor to accept this award for General Strahm, United States Air Force, and a graduate of this great institution. You have heard today about his many accomplishments while serving this nation in 2 world wars. He was an American hero, an ace among fighter pilots, with 5 aerial victories in World War I. During World War II, General Strahm served as Chief of Staff for the 9th Air Force in the Middle East, and later in Great Britain preparing for the D-Day landings at Normandy. He was highly decorated and acknowledged by Allied nations in both wars. Among his numerous awards included the U.S. Distinguished Service Cross, the U.S. Silver Star, the U.S. Legion of Merit, the French Croix de Guerre, the British Distinguished Flying Cross, the British Commander to the Order of the British Empire, and the Italian Gold Medal for Valor, and other such awards and honors. Victor Strahm was one of the great aviation pioneers of his time and helped usher in the modern era of aviation. Let me make a few observations about the young men who went to France during World War I. They were not much different from fighter pilots of later generations. They possessed a bit of the daredevil, were highly confident, were risk takers, were motivated, had nerves of steel, and they had a bit of swagger in their walk. But most of all, they had that unquenchable thirst for flying. General Strahm did it all. He set the example for other Kentuckians who would follow in his footsteps. Combat pilots that included General Russell Daugherty, Johnny Magna, Dan Cherry, Ken Fleener, Arnie Franklin, Terry Wilcutt, Mac Reynolds, Dr. Lewis Graham, Dr. Earl Wassam, Dr. Jack Carwell, Kay Greer, and many others. In closing, I would like to acknowledge these individuals who helped make the nomination of General Strahm for this honor. They are Brigadier General Dan Cherry, Mr. Ray Buckberry, Colonel Arnie Franklin, all from the Aviation Heritage Park, who wrote supporting letters for the nomination of General Strahm. Mrs. Mary Lucas, who has done previous research work on General Strahm. Dr. Jerry Wilder, who encouraged me to submit General Strahm's name for consideration. Mrs. Cora Jane Spiller, who is a fountain of information on the Strahm family. Mrs. Sue Lynn McDaniels, an archivist from the Kentucky Museum and Library. Mrs. Tracy Morrison from the WKU Alumni Office, and Barbara Deeb, and my wife Marilyn, who helps edit my work. I am sure if General Strahm were alive and present today, he would have considered this honor as one of his greatest awards. Thank you very much.